What's up YouTube, it's Mike aka Plastic Life back with another review, this time on the Max Factory Figma Raging Wolf from Elden Ring. Elden Ring is one of my favorite games of all time, and the Raging Wolf armor is one I used through my first playthrough, so naturally I was really excited to get this. My excitement quickly changed to despair when right out of the box the main peg in the abdomen region broke when I tried to move the figure. I was devastated. I contacted Hobby Search right away, and I'm still waiting to see if they'll do something for me. I spent the next 24 hours trying to Frankenstein a new joint from the old Figma solid snake figure. I was able to combine some pieces together into a workable abdomen joint so I can get this review out. So the ab articulation may differ from what you receive if you are planning on buying this figure. Despite this figure being very fragile, it's truly amazing to see this much detail packed into a 6-inch figure. I think they absolutely nailed the design. Check out the level of detail in the helmet and all throughout the figure. Take a look at the shoulder pads, the breastplate. Look at all these belts and pouches. Just really, really, really nice detail. Look at how the greaves came out. Just absolutely amazing detail for such a small figure. If you follow my channel, you'll know that I harp on companies for not including shading throughout their figure, but Max Factory and Figma absolutely nailed the shading on this. Bringing out all of the little fibers of fur, I guess, on the cloak there. Even in the armor. Helps the details pop in the figure. So let's take a look at some of the articulation for this figure. Unfortunately, even with this much thought into the design, you can still see some gaps in the armor there that reveal the ball joints and the internal mechanisms underneath the chest there. I'm not sure if this is just an error in the way that they glued it, but it is quite noticeable there. When moving the head, you just have to be careful because the hair is on a joint that moves up and down like so. You can turn the head approximately that much. And you have a separate joint from the neck into the body, so that gives you a little bit more extra movement. The shoulder armor is on tiny little ball pegs right in there, so you need to be careful when you're moving this. They can definitely snap. Just move the armor out of the way, and you can bring the arm up quite high. You can bring the arm back out to the side, and it does have a butterfly joint to move the arm forward like so. A double jointed elbow moves that much. The arm rotation comes from the shoulder joint. We have tiny little wrist pegs that can move inwards and outwards. And if you rotate, you can move up and down. So my figure broke out of the package in the upper abdominal joint, but the joint that I manufactured with the other Figma parts works about the same. You can bend forward about this much, but it leaves a really bad gap in the back. You could side to side move, and you can rotate side to side. Just be careful, there's some resistance there. I just noticed that my armor is separating here, but not on this side. Yeah, that's kind of a bummer. There's a lower abdominal ball peg, but it doesn't produce a lot of movement. You can bend forward just a little bit more, and bend back about that much. The first skirt is also articulated. You can move about that much forward and back. And it can move out to the sides about that much. The hips are on a drop down, so you can pull down to increase movement. Obviously the skirt is going to get in the way because these parts are soft plastic. You can move out to the side about that much. There is rotation at the upper thigh. There is a thigh cut, but it's very, very stiff on mine. So you'd probably have to loosen that up, get some more movement there. We have double jointed knees that bend all the way back, forward and back, as well as toe pivot, and then you can rotate inwards and outwards. So this figure moves pretty well for a person in armor. The only issue is that when you're moving it and bending it, you are breaking up the sculpt quite a bit. So if you're looking to take photos of this figure, just try to make sure you angle this so that you're hiding some of those joints that are very visible. Let's get into some accessories because this figure has quite a bit of them. First up is our hands, and we get 4 pairs of hands and 1 additional hand with an effect piece. First we get our fist hands, and they are actually different. So the right hand and the left hand are different. The left hand's got a little wrap around it. You get a pair of gripping hands, a relaxed hand, and a wider gripping hand for the larger weapons. You get a right hand that's holding a flask of Crimson Tears, and unfortunately this is connected, so you can't actually remove the flask of Crimson Tears. It would have been cool if it was just a separate accessory, but it still looks really good. For weapons, we have the Bastard Sword. We get a scabbard as well, but it actually doesn't hold the sword. It's closed off at the top. Around back of the figure, just lift up the hair and you will notice an extra little port there next to the peg hole for the stand. And you can just take the ball peg there, line it up, and pop it in. And then it holds the scabbard, and it's nice and articulated as well. Next up we have the twin blades, and they come detached like this. You just port one end into the other end there. Just like so. Next you have the Dark Moon Greatsword. I would have liked this to be a little bit more transparent. I don't know if my camera can capture it, but there is some design inside there that looks reminiscent of the video game. We have our ironed round shield. And you get a really nice wooden torch, and it actually looks really good. There's like just such great detail in here. It looks like actual wood. So you just use the hands, the narrow gripping hand for the swords and the torch, and the larger gripping hand there for the greatsword. The figure is very delicate, so just be careful when you are taking the peg off. Make sure you pull straight. If there's any resistance, use some heat. And then just port the other hand in. You can stab yourself with the back of the gauntlet, these pieces that are sticking out, the fur. For the swords, just remove the butt end. Slide the sword in to the hand, and then reattach the butt end. Okay. There you go. Getting the shield on is a pain in the ass, so I'm going to show you how to do it. You just remove the back handle, like so. Take one of the smaller gripping hands. Slide that through. Then you're going to connect the outside piece. This thing is like over-engineered and very, very delicate. Just line up the pegs on the back, push them in. Then you can just take the hand and port it in. Like so. What I really don't like about this is that the shield is kind of loose. Like sometimes you'll just see it just fall down like so, like there. So I'm probably just going to display this thing without a shield. I mean, I didn't even use shields in this game anyways. I just two-handed my sword, or just used 2 swords. But there it is with the sword and shield equipped. The Dark Moon Greatsword just attaches at the butt end like so. And you slide the larger grip hand in. Just port that back. Import the hand in, like so. And this figure, although it is quite delicate, it does hold the weight of this sword no problem. Looks really cool though. Port the twin blade into the smaller hand set. Like so. Attach the other end. Port the hand in. Got the twin blade equipped. The flask of Crimson Tears, just remove this peg. And then port that hand in, like so. And there's enough articulation on this figure to easily bring the flask up to take a drink. You get this piece here that is for porting the shield onto the back. You can probably tell by the way that this is designed that it's going to look really bad, but you just remove the handle, line up the pegs accordingly, like so. Turn the figure around and locate the peg hole in the back. And just push that in. There's a lot of resistance pushing that in. But there you go. I mean, that just looks really bad, but I mean, the hair is in the way. Yeah, nothing really you can do about that. But if you wanted to equip it on his back. So let's get into some size comparisons. If you have the Figma Demon's Souls PlayStation 5 fluted armor, or if you have the SH Figuarts Festering Fingerprint Vike, they actually scale very well together. The cool thing is also that their weapons are actually all interchangeable. You can use the SH Figuarts Vike's weapon, you can use the Fluted Knight's swords as well, and they'll fit on each other, so you can move the weapons around or the shields around as you please. Skeletons are always rampant in the lands between, so here is a Mythic Legion skeleton and a Kulu World skeleton. And finally, next to the Demon's Souls, Maiden in Black and Figma Link. Okay, so final thoughts on this figure. This figure is not for your average collector. This is strictly, for somebody who is a big Elden Ring fan, especially a fan of this armor. This figure is very, very fragile. It's very scary to move. The parts are very, very small. And there's all kinds of breakups in the sculpt whenever you move it. Just things can go wrong. So not something that you're going to want to pose all the time. Even though the posability is so good with this figure, just probably not something you want to pose all the time. The new joint that I manufactured is already very loose. So, I mean, yeah, it's kind of a bummer. This piece is going to look nice on your desk, though. If you're a Elden Ring fan, you'll probably be happy with the way this looks. Aesthetically, it's such a nice figure, but I don't think I would purchase this if I wasn't a fan of this armor in particular. If you found this review helpful, hit that thumbs up and subscribe buttons, leave a comment below, head on over to plastic.life on Instagram for more action figure pics. Always remember, at the end of the day, it's your collection. Buy whatever makes you happy. I hope you'll catch my next videos. Take care.